How good it is to see you all gathered here this morning to celebrate, renew, and activate. We are finally here. You know, for the past 60 days since I started on the job, I've been saying we should march together in Sacramento. And what a 60 days it has been. The first thing I want to say before I really get on a roll is thank you. Thank you, thank you. It seems like it has never been harder to be a teacher, a board member, a principal, or anybody else affiliated with charter schools. Now, we know that we are not the villains. We know that anything any of us is trying to do is provide a better education to as many kids as we can. And we know that that is super hard work, even on the best of days. And I know that today, that work is harder. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, and welcome. We are navigating very complex issues and polarized times, where who screams the loudest or who cuts the deepest wins. Let me tell you a little bit of a personal story about why I refuse to take that bait, why I refuse to surrender to the politics of othering, where you must hate whatever is different to feel that your own cause is just, and why I am incredibly passionate about this movement, why every time that I visit one of our schools, that passion is renewed and born again. Because when I look at the faces of our students, I see myself. I know what it's like to stand outside, to be an other. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. When I was 17, I left the only life I knew in northern Mexico, my family and friends, and I came to this country because I wanted an opportunity to reach higher and get a better education. Now, my English wasn't so great. Even though I could read and I could write proficiently, I hesitated to speak because I constantly mispronounced words that seemed to get stuck on my tongue feeling thick and clumsy when I tried to make those weird English guttural sounds, you know, those half-swallowed utterances in English. Now, can you imagine me mute? Thanks for the laugh. Obviously not. But I was. Like my first 2 years in college, I actually felt that way. But no matter my fears, I came reaching for a future that I could not even yet imagine. Now, I remember laying out my college catalog and choosing my major, mapping out my coursework, and I was so eager to get started. And I was assigned a freshman advisor, and I was so hopeful and eager to see her in those first few days, in those first few weeks, so that I could talk about my plans. But that callback never came. So that first quarter, I worked harder than I ever had. I poured myself into my music. I used to sing. Don't anymore. And my journalism classes. And my first quarter ended. And Christmas break came, and with it, my grades in the mail. I pulled a 4.0 GPA in that first quarter. And as I watched the snow pile outside in that bitter Michigan winter, the phone finally rang, and it was my advisor. And I could finally talk to her about my plans. And we met her in her office, and she embraced me warmly, and she said, "I saw your grades come in, and I just had to meet you. I could not believe that you pulled perfect grades in your first semester. In fact, I'm surprised that you're still here. You know, your people tend not to do very well at this school, and I thought you'd be gone." And her words stung. But the reality was that I was more confused than angry. Here I was, being told that I was special, uncommon, defying expectations. But I also felt it in my gut that I was being othered, because the message was actually really clear. I didn't belong. I wasn't supposed to be there. And I wasn't worth minding until that moment when I appeared to be uniquely successful. They thought I'd be gone, but I'm still here. And so on day 5 on the job, when I looked out of our CCSA windows and I saw a sea of red-clad teachers there to welcome me to my new job, I thought, okay, well, my first thought was, really, guys, you shouldn't have flowers, would have been fine. Just kidding. What I really thought was like, hey, I am still here. I am still fighting for kids. And you know what? Through all their chants and name-calling, that's actually what they're doing too. I heard them call out my name, and it's a good thing that it was LA because you know what? They pronounced it right. Mi nombre es Myrna Castrejón, just for the record. It's not Myrna Castrejón. And the streets of LA were awash in the red of 15,000 Angelinos standing up for public education. Now, as a former volunteer organizer fighting for equity on the US-Mexico border in El Paso, Texas, I have to respect that teachers took to the street and they shone a bright light on learning conditions that none of us should find acceptable. And yet, we are not the villains in the story, no matter what they chant and what they message. And neither are they the villains, the hardworking teachers who do deserve better pay and smaller classes and a life that is equal to the dignity of their profession. No matter the frontal assault, the lies, their unleashed rage at an easy scapegoat, still, I said, we should be marching together. Now, charters cannot wait for partnerships to form or for events to unfold, especially at this critical moment. We have to activate our collective strength and stand up to the wild and intentional campaign of deflection and gaslighting and the misrepresentation of our stories and intent and educate people. Little did they realize, though, that in that moment when they targeted us, as they did, you know what? They also handed us the megaphone. Because in those 6 heady days of that historic LA strike, we protected our schools, we kept the focus on teaching and learning, and keeping our teachers and students safe. And you know what? In those 6 days, our schools retained 98% attendance. But what we also did was use that spotlight to get our message out. We did more than 24 interviews telling our story, talking about who we are and who we serve. How our public schools in LA and across this great state are a lifeline of opportunity for young people, generationally denied because of an accident of birth, the location of their zip code, or the color of their skin, or the way they learn. Now, when the strike ended, we learned that as part of a deal, the LAUSD board was going to call on Sacramento to issue a moratorium on new charter schools. Our ability to educate more students, to give more students a shot at a better future, was bargained away literally in the middle of the night in a back room to serve the politics of adults and not the needs of students. Are we going to take that? No. Hell no, absolutely not. And in 48 hours, 4,000 charter students, teachers, and parents stood up and told the board that their vote was not symbolic, that stopping our growth and threatening our very existence would be carried out in their name in Sacramento. And we set our sights on pushing with full force for the battle we knew would come. The battle that is here today. So yeah, month 1 was pretty interesting. Oakland? Is that you? Yeah, Oakland, we can be there. We can be there. 7 a.m. flight, you got it. We got a team of 20 CCSA staff on the ground ready to help. And so the story repeated itself all over again in Oakland. And for 7 days, again, we stood by our leaders and our schools, check-ins twice a day, deploying across their city to ensure that the drop-offs and pick-offs remained safe, and that we stayed focused on what we do best. And what's what we do best? Staying focused on our students. And while the PR machine behind CTA churned out that same tired message of us versus them, charter versus district, demonizing, delegitimizing, we saw that our interviews starting to pay off. The press started including our voices more in the stories, and those stories became a little more nuanced. And they included the story of how we got to this mess in California, with 2 beleaguered districts at opposite ends of the state that cannot seem to fix their management or achievement issues. The choking fiscal pressures across the state on districts, even those that have no charters in them. And that story is starting to be told. Those stories told of how so many families are left behind, and how they are dying for more good schools, and how charters can fill that critical space. Now, those stories don't make for catchy slogans. They're not easily shouted from megaphones. Try making a chant out of control legacy costs. No, that kind of doesn't work. Yet even as we weathered the strikes, we also worked hard to negotiate a lasting peace in Sacramento on conflict of interest and transparency. Now, you know, even if they don't, you know that we have wanted to settle this issue for more than 10 years. 4 times we either sponsored or supported bills to put the issue to rest, but the deal eluded us. But on day 53, I stood behind Governor Newsom while he signed SB 126 once and for all, taking that cudgel away from our opponents while protecting our core autonomies. Margaret, I think we need to throw away the 100-day plan. What do you say? So yes, it's been a wild 60 days, but it hasn't just been 60 days. For me, when I think back to that slightly terrified but determined girl who arrived from Mexico, and the 3 decades that have followed, making it my mission to make public education a place where every young person's gifts and challenges are celebrated, where joy and rigor open pathways to success, to better futures, where none are told that our dreams are too big for our station, where you don't need to be exceptional to be valued, to have a place, to belong. For me, that place, that home, has been the charter movement. And along the way, I've met exceptional leaders, friends, mothers and fathers yearning like I did for an education that recognized the value of their children and were willing to pay the price of their dreams. Like a new friend I met last night at the hotel from John Muir Charter, she said to me, "They don't understand. Our children are not trash." And mothers like Marisela Barrientos, who sought asylum in the US, escaping the violence in her native Guatemala. And she came here with her kids, and her son, Pablo, is now making a name for himself nationally when he developed an app at Bright Star Charter that helps other immigrants like myself learn English faster through peer mentoring. Man, I wish I had that app in 1982. How did Pablo do it? His counselors, his instructors at Bright Star take the time and the flexibility to recognize every student's special talents and help them nurture it. For Pablo, it meant finding a way to enroll him in a coding class at USC over the summer. Now that kind of dedication, innovation, and hard work, going the extra mile or 20, is what's at the heart of every single charter school. And it's something that we need to make sure the world understands. 7 years ago, I had the privilege of taking my son to Africa. I'm a single mom, but my son and I seek out adventures every now and then that can show him the breadth and diversity of our world. where you can find those small moments of connection and belonging that, if you are centered on empathy and curiosity, can show you that you can find a home wherever you go. After 10 days of exploring the majesty of the Serengeti, the scars of Soweto, the urban core of Johannesburg, we were ready to fly home. On Mandela Day, even as Nelson Mandela was spending his last days on this earth in a hospital in Pretoria. We waited for our flight, enjoying steel drum music, watching a whole country pouring out their love for Madiba on this, his last birthday. And I saw a mural there at Tambo Airport of an African proverb that I had heard many, many times before, but this time it resonated with a special urgency. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. For too long, we have gone alone. We have placed our trust in the loftiness of our intentions, racing with open arms headlong into the thorniest, biggest challenges in public education. And our success and our shortcomings have become fodder for angry retribution. What about the other 90%? I'll say that we have not worked hard enough to say something of specific value to our counterparts in the traditional public school system. We have been too willing to treat their challenges as their challenges, instead of recognizing that the challenges of public education today and of public educators affect everyone, including us. And perhaps we have not been clear about what we believe, of whether we believe that charter schools are an end unto themselves, instead of a means to achieving the ultimate goal of improving public education for every single student, no matter what school they attend. We need to do better. And we can lead by example, be clear about what we have done well, like providing a better model for fuller inclusion for students that are differently abled, like providing opportunities where African American students can find places of belonging and success in our schools, where our schools are more accountable and transparent. Now they are audited down to the site level, and our continued journey requires a restatement of our commitments and defending our record every 5 years. Now, this legislative session, we are changing that. We have introduced bills that don't just address charter issues, but they benefit special education and African American students regardless of whether they are enrolled in charter public schools or in their neighborhood schools. Together, we can reach out across our differences and solve serious problems with serious solutions to ensure that adequate funding of our public education system is the outcome of this awakening. And together, we can also demand that we invest more and smarter so that more funding reaches classrooms, not bureaucracy. That's where the resources are needed most. Now, the fight for equity, justice, and access knows no single governance model. And in the end, that is what families want: more good schools. We must return to our original intent and be that bridge to innovation, of risk-taking and sharing, of being the vanguard of public education, not because we're an end in itself, but because we are a response. In many cases, in fact, in most cases, the best response to the cry for better. And we have something to say about how to do things better, about not being complacent, about fighting with grit and perseverance for our students, for all students. If you want to go far, go together. That is our challenge in this a watershed year for education. How do we move from the politics of division and reach for that higher ground to the value that unites us, student success, and still withstand the most withering attacks on our movement we have ever seen? Well, we can't do business as usual. These are dangerous times. But I strongly believe that in moments of crisis, there's also opportunities for unity, for finding inner strength in unusual places, for peeling away the insignificant distractions that sometimes get in the way of a clarity of a fight. Those of you who are my Facebook friends, you know that one of my favorite hashtags is #NeverWasteACrisis. Because a crisis is where you lean in, where you jujitsu that pain into opportunity. Now, as the new leader of CCSA, I feel a tremendous responsibility to navigate this moment with you, in your name, for your students. I will never overpromise. I will always choose to go together. I mean what I say, and I do what I promise. And together, we can do things differently. Here's some ideas how. We need to move beyond the transactional. It's not just about what CCSA can do for you, or what CCSA, or we can do for you. And we know that we ask a lot. This is an all of us moment, and we need to be more attuned and engaged with each other in this moment of great threat and potential opportunity. We need deep engagement. This is about all of us. We need to multiply our collective voices. I guess I found out in the last 60 days that I kind of love a good interview. But you know what? The strongest voices are the ones in this room. And our parents and students that are not in this room. We need you to speak up and stand up. We need to also strengthen our local ecosystems. We have friends, families, allies, friends that are outside of the charter movement, that are ready to lock arms with us and act as one. We are not islands. And we must strengthen our schools, your schools, because your schools deserve our every support to ensure that you don't just survive this, but that you can thrive. And we will lead with our stories and show them who we are and who we serve. Speaking in our own voices, telling the stories that reweave the very fabric of opportunity and inclusion that make our country and our golden state great. Nuestras voces valen. Nuestras voces valen y valen mucho. Now, I told you about the awkward teenager coming to America in search for a better education and a better life. I took this job, and I proudly take those slings and arrows that come with the territory because I'm still fighting for that girl, and she did not succeed alone. I graduated from college. I went to graduate school, and I built a career I couldn't have even dreamed of with a lot of help. Inspiring teachers who lifted me up, helpful friends who shared my burdens, a loving family who let me go so that I could spread my wings. Why did I succeed? Why do any of us succeed? Yeah, sometimes it is because of, and sometimes in spite of, our own personal journeys and upbringing. But more often than not, it's because we have the benefit of help, of people being on our side when we fall 7 times and we stand up 8, of those who are willing to stand with us, the help of those who celebrated with us, supported us, and yes, sometimes they even carried us. So let us stand together. Let us march together. Let the air vibrate with the strength of our collective voices, leading with the stories of children who would suffer the most if our schools do not survive. Let them see their faces, the faces of students most dependent on every ounce of strength we can muster when we say, we will not go quietly. We will not rip opportunity away from students where they are finding belonging in a home. Porque jamás en la historia de nuestra lucha por la equidad se ha servido el fin de la justicia al arrancar la oportunidad de las manos de aquellos quienes más apoyo merecen. For the other half of the room, never, ever, ever, in the long struggle for equity and opportunity, has the aim of justice been served by ripping away opportunity from the most vulnerable. and that day is not today. I will always find a way to work with those who share our goal of equity, justice, and opportunity for all kids. But I will never hesitate to take the fight to the doorstep to those who would sacrifice it, to those who would put it on the line cynically. And make no mistake, that is exactly what is happening in the legislature right now, and what is happening would end our movement. So tomorrow we make our stand. Tomorrow we roar. Tomorrow we tell CTA that their package of bills is poison and that there is a better way. There is a better day, a day when we march together.
These children's lives, are their lives worth less than some other child? Of course not, but some people seem to think so. And we're going to stop that. We're going to stop that, and today is the day we're going to say, this is enough.
You don't mess with people's kids. You don't mess with people's future.
Let's show people that we can pull together, supporting the creativity and the kids and the future of this state.
We're not going to be able to ask for that. We're going to have to demand that.
When charter schools are under attack, what do?
If we mobilize our families, we will get what we need.
Together we can overcome, and we will.
I believe that we will win.
Come on, people! What? We tell a story! What? We tell the whole world this is charter territory!
What do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? What do we do? Are you ready, Charter Nation? Stand up and be counted tomorrow. I am ready to stand for our children. I am ready to stand for all children. But if people want to divide us and stand in our way and spread lies and fear, I am ready to fight. I am ready to fight with you and for you until every child in California has a great public education. Now bring your t-shirts tomorrow. We stand together. We stand up. I am ready. And I'm Myrna Castrejón, and I'm ready to lead. Thank you. Have a great conference.